This NFL Week 14 Thursday Night Football Player Props edition of the Propcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with promo code MACHINE to get a 50% deposit bonus of up to $1,000. We're also brought to you by Rebet, a new sportsbook available in 45 states. Download Rebet in your app store and use promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit match up to $100. And we're also brought to you by Rhythm. Start crushing college football and the NFL with Rhythm. Get your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM.
And taking a shot to ground downfield. He makes the catch, and he gets in for the touchdown. The catch is made by Calvin Ridley. Wilson, what as he throws deep downfield. It's going to be caught by Metcalf.
Welcome, everyone, to the Propcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. NFL Week 14 tips off on Thursday night, and we got a great matchup to start the NFL Week 14 schedule. Battle of NFC North teams between the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions. The second game of the season between these two teams. The Lions did win the game earlier in Lambeau Field in Green Bay by the score, I believe it was 24-14 in favor of the Lions there. They'll go for the season sweep here. But joining me here to help me break down all the player props happening for the Thursday night football game, I got my guy here with me. It's ChrisBeCappinn. Chris, what's going on, my man? How you doing?
What's up, Munaf? Great. Like you said, NFC divisional game this week, and we got a Lions team looking for yet another win. It feels like all they do is win. We got a Green Bay team trying to get a little quick revenge, because that matchup that you mentioned, with them losing came just a few weeks ago. So probably still got a bad taste in their mouth. Short week. We should be in for a good one here, Munaf. I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, like you mentioned, they just played, I want to say 3 weeks ago in Lambeau Field, and the Lions went in there and got the victory. But I think more importantly, we take a look at the standings in this NFC North division. Obviously, the Lions leading right now 11 with a record of 11-1. And the two teams right on their heels, though, the Minnesota Vikings, who are now 1 game back of the Lions in that division, and also the Green Bay Packers, who are sitting 2 games back here. So this is a huge game here for the Packers if they want any chance at least to win this division in the NFC North. Will definitely be a tall hill to climb here, but again, it pretty much this is where they would have to go out and win this game against the Detroit Lions. Getting some injury stuff here, I think maybe plays into our player props here a little bit, but I'll start with the Green Bay Packers side of things. Jaire Alexander continues to be a limited participant as of Tuesday. He's dealing with a knee injury, cornerback for the Green Bay Packers there. Kenny Clark, nose tackle, was a limited participant on Monday and Tuesday. And Romeo Doubs is in the concussion protocol. However, he was a limited participant both on Monday and Tuesday as well. We'll see if he's out there. And then Josh Jacobs, who's dealing with a calf injury, has also been a limited participant for this team. Guard Elton Jenkins was also a limited participant on Tuesday. And then for the Detroit Lions side of things, Taylor Decker, tackle, did not practice. DJ Reader also did not practice as of Tuesday. Carlton Davis did return as a full participant in practice, along with Emmanuel Mosley for the Detroit Lions. With the two injuries we want to keep an eye on for sure is going to be Taylor Decker and DJ Reader for the Detroit Lions, especially that DJ Reader one. I'm going to be very curious to see if he is out there for the Detroit Lions. All right, before we do get into the player props here, let me remind everybody to download the SGPN app. It's completely free, and you have easy access to all of our shows and all of our picks pages, which is also free as well. Just go to your App Store, Google Play Store, wherever you do get your apps, and download the SGPN app. Chris, any general thoughts for this game here between the Packers and the Lions before we do get into our player props?
A lot of it will tie into the player props, but I think the difference between this game and the one we just saw these two teams play is going to be the injury report, right? And of course, that game, the game that we saw, was played in Green Bay, right? We saw the game played in Green Bay, so we got the game in Detroit. So we got condition wise, right? You got Lambeau Field versus versus Ford Field. So those two things, I think, the injuries and just the playing conditions, I think, set up, in my opinion, for more points. So might be good for us. Like some player props over in this spot.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen some of these divisional games flying over the totals on specifically on Thursday Night Football. I'm just trying to go back and see how these two teams have fared in Detroit specifically, as far as how they have performed here. Give me a second. So not much there since 2020. It's 2-2 straight up. The Lions are 3-1 ATS, 2-2 towards the on the total there, averaging close to 49 points combined there. So, and we also know that Matt LaFleur, the head coach of the Packers, has been a very, very profitable head coach when he's in the underdog role there. So right now, this number was at 3.5 as of yesterday on Tuesday. Now we're sitting at +3 in, I should say -3 in favor of the Detroit Lions. All right, let's get into our player props here. Chris, I'll let you lead off. Player prop number 1. Where are you taking us?
Right back where we were last week. We're going right back to Jared Allen. I'm going right back, not Jared Allen, Jared Goff, and I'm going right back to his over 1.5 passing touchdowns. I think I'm gonna bet this until the guy doesn't throw 2. He's hit the line in 8 of his 12 games so far this season, so about 66%. 4 of his last 5, 80%. At home specifically, we know he's much better at home. He's averaging 2. You look at this Packers defense against the pass, specifically they're 25th against the pass. You mentioned Jameer Alexander potentially being limited in practice. Even if he plays, I don't think that he's going to be quite 100%. He is their best cover corner. With them being shorthanded, I feel like with Detroit defensively being shorthanded, I kind of feel like this game could be a little bit of a shootout. We know that the strength of Detroit is their run defense. And there, Hutchinson is down. You mentioned the big piece for me being Reader, but outside of him, you mentioned the other 2 running backs as well. So I feel like it can kind of be a little bit of shootout. I think Green Bay can score a few more points in this game. I'm looking at Jared Goff's last 4 home games specifically. He's thrown at least 2 touchdowns in 4 straight home games in every game since September the 15th when they played against the Detroit Lions in week 2, I think it was. So, I mean, this guy, just at the crib, man, and it's not the greatest, and it was the same thing last week, right? Like the Bears, not the best pass defense in the NFL, but they are a team that doesn't give up a lot of passing touchdowns. Doesn't really matter with Jared Allen. I keep saying Jared Goff. He just finds a way to get 2 touchdowns in there, and we know that he has elite weapons, right? Last week it was Sam Laporta for 2. But even outside of Sam Laporta, you got those outside weapons at the wide receiver position. 2 dynamic running backs coming out of the backfield that can both catch the ball. So yeah, I'll take Jared Goff up and over his passing touchdowns, 1.5 to get things started here.
Yeah, he's played in 4 career games against the Green Bay Packers. One against the Packers when he was with the Rams. At home specifically, that game he had 3 passing touchdowns, but since he got traded over to the Detroit Lions, Jared Goff in 3 home games against the Green Bay Packers has 2 touchdowns in each of those games against the Green Bay Packers here. So, I know the Packers defense has been pretty good this season. Just trying to see what quarterbacks have done against them. But, we talk about these quarterbacks that go up against some of these teams. I mean, you also have to look at the quality of these quarterbacks. But last week we saw Tua throw for 2. I think Trevor Lawrence has thrown for 2 as well this season. You had Sam Darnold threw for 2, Will Levis threw for 2, Jalen Hurts also threw for 2 as well. So yeah, I like this. I think Jared Goff at the crib I think that's really what the handicap is, where he's comfortable in the elements of Ford Field. Weather's not a factor, of course. So yeah, over 1.5 passing touchdowns for Jared Goff. All right, for my first player prop, didn't really have one on the quarterback side of things, so I'll go over to Jaden Reed here for the Green Bay Packers. Talked about this a lot on the pod. It's just really fading the Lions defense against the slot wide receivers this season. And that's Jaden Reed right now. And I'm going to bet on him to go up and over his number of 47.5 receiving yards. And it's a little bit curious, Chris, that when this number at 47.5 for Jaden Reed, where over the last 3 weeks, he's combined to have 60 plus receiving yards total. I think that's kind of telling what I think the books are also expecting him out of the big week here. Let's go back to that game when these two teams matched up in that game a few weeks ago. In that game at home, Jaden Reed, 5 receptions on 6 targets, 113 receiving yards in that game. And just in general, I mean, you take a look at what wide receivers, especially in that slot position, have been able to do against his Lions team. I'm not going to read off the whole list, but it's been a little bit eye-opening, and I think that's something that I've talked a lot about here on the Propcast. I mean, we go back to week 1. Cooper Kupp had a huge week for the Rams, followed by Chris Godwin. Both those guys got up and over 100 plus receiving yards. We talked about Michael Wilson and Greg Dortch. Both those guys combined for 99 receiving yards. Jackson Smith and Jigba, the slot wide receiver for the Seahawks, got up and over his projection. But just like last week, Keenan Allen had 73 receiving yards in that slot wide receiver position. So I think this is going to be another game where I think Jaden Reed has a big game here. I like this number at over 47.5. Also like his longest reception to go over. But I'll officially give it out here, Chris. Jaden Reed over 47.5 receiving yards for the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, it's the matchup, like you mentioned, especially with him coming off 3 games, like you mentioned, where he didn't even get the 20, he didn't get the 30 yards receiving. Now all of a sudden we still got it set at 47.5. You also, like you mentioned, the injury news to the wide receiver room kind of being banged up a little bit for this Green Bay Packers offense. With Romeo Doubs, being limited in practice this week could just lead to more opportunities. When we think about the Lions, we think about a defense that's going to be able to slow down the run and force you to have to pass the ball a little bit more. So a lot of those passing opportunities could go to a guy like Reed. So I like this look a lot. If I think it's just a system play for yourself and it's been profitable, let's keep taking it.
All right, let's keep it rolling here. Let's get to player prop number 2 for Thursday Night Football. Chris, what do you got?
So I got 2. I'll save one for honorable mentions, but let's go against the grain a little bit here. Let's go with Josh Jacobs. I'll go Josh Jacobs here. I'll save Jahmyr Gibbs for honorable mention, but Josh Jacobs, I like his rush attempts in this game. The number is 16.5. And it's minus 108 on FanDuel. It's juiced to minus 125 on other books. So I love to hear that. I am of the mindset here, that me. I always bet against running backs against the Lions. That's not something that I do a lot. I don't bet on them. I'm typically on unders, under rush attempts, under rushing yards. Josh Jacobs went under in the game that he played against them. The last time, I think he only ran the ball 13 times. But I'm looking at just the totality, taking this situation specifically, and I'm seeing Green Bay. This is the team that runs the football. They run the ball 31 times per game. That's 5th in the league. For 4.8 yards per carry, that's good for 6th in the league. For an average of 148.5 yards per game, which is 6th in the league. I think that they're going to try to establish the run here. You look at the Lions. You mentioned it at the top of the show, but they have 3 starting defensive linemen on the injury report. That haven't practiced at all this week. And it's already a short week, right? But one of those guys, like you mentioned, being DJ Reader, we know the impact that he had last year when he was in Cincinnati on the Bengals with him on and off the field. So I kind of feel like Green Bay will be able to move the ball. That's a big concern, in my opinion. And then I look at Josh Jacobs. He's ran the ball 18 times or more in 3 straight games. 4 of his last 5 games, he's actually gone up and over the 16.5 rush attempts. 6 of his last 8 games, he's actually going up and over the 16.5 rush attempts. So, me, I look at the number, I say, I got to find the under. It's different in the Lions in Detroit. I got to find the under, but not so quick. I think, the injuries, we mentioned no Hutchinson. I don't know. I think, especially with him running the ball only 13 times, but then they set the number at 16.5, in just a couple weeks. I like this over for Josh Jacobs. I think that Green Bay is going to be able to play a well-balanced attack like they typically do. Try to keep Jared Goff on the sideline as much as possible in that high-power offense, and lean more on the rush here. So I'll go Josh Jacobs up and over his 16.5 rush attempts. We also got a super, pretty short line for the game. So books are anticipating a pretty closely contested game, and I think I would agree with that as well. So I'll go Josh Jacobs up and over 16.5 rush attempt.
Yeah, I couldn't talk you off of this at all. I think it's number one, what you mentioned, that if you want to keep the Lions off the field, you got to run the ball effectively in this game. And I think that they're going to be able to do that. 3 head-to-head matchups in his career against the Detroit Lions. 15 carries, 61 yards when he was with the Raiders last season. I don't think he played in the game. Oh, yeah, he did. I'm sorry. So he had 13 attempts for 95 rushing yards in this game. But I think with the injuries, like we mentioned, to that defensive line of the Detroit Lions, I just think that they're going to have a lot of success running the football here. And if they want to slow the game down, that's how you got to do it. You got to do it with Josh Jacobs in this game here. You like the attempts to go over. I also like and I was going to say this for honorable mentions, but I'll just mention this now. I like his rushing yards to go over 68.5. In this game. I think it's a little bit correlated that if he does get up and over his attempts, I think that he does get over the rushing yards as well. And I know he's dealing with a calf injury, but I think that he mentioned that he wants to, I guess, the snap counts to be removed for him. Like he's saying, just let me loose, let me go out there and let me do my thing. And we've seen this guy perform. It was a few seasons ago where he led the league in rushing yards. So I think this is a game that, number one, like we talked about, that if the Packers want to win this game, they're going to have to establish the run, have a well-balanced attack. And I think that you got to do that with Josh Jacobs and run the football effectively. And like you mentioned, for the last 5 games, he's gone up and over this number: 26 attempts against the Niners, 25 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. He scored a touchdown as one for the last 5 games. I know we'll talk about touchdown scores later, but definitely do like this for Josh Jacobs here. So I'm liking that you like the attempts, but I also do like the yards to go over. So a little bit of correlation there in this game. All right, Chris, before we continue the conversation here for our player props for Thursday night football, let me tell everyone about our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Pick'em has one of the biggest menus for all sports: NFL, college football, college basketball, MMA, NBA, NASCAR, and more. And you can now use specials and boosts on all flex entries. Make sure you use that promo code MACHINE to sign up to claim your special pick and first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. That's underdogfantasy.com. Make sure you use that promo code MACHINE. And we're also brought to you by Rebet. Rebet is a new social sportsbook available in 45 states. There are plenty of betting opportunities that are available on Rebet. It's easy to use and great for people to find, for people in states where traditional sportsbooks may be restricted. Download Rebet in the App Store and use your promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit match up to $100. So again, that's Rebet. Make sure you guys use that promo code SGPN. All right, Chris, let's continue the conversation here. You talked about one of the running backs on the Green Bay Packers side of things. I'm going to go over to the other side. I'm looking at David Montgomery in this game. Now, I got to get in my receiving yards for a running back here. So I'm going to go with David Montgomery up and over the number of 14.5 right now. This number was hovering at 13.5 yesterday, and I think it's on the move, I think, in the right direction. But I still love it up to 14.5 all the way up to 20.5 in this game. So let's take a look, number one, what David Montgomery has been able to do out of the backfield, catching the football for this Detroit Lions team. The targets haven't really been there. He's averaging around 3 targets per game, but he's making the most of it. So last 5 games, Chris, for the Detroit Lions, David Montgomery out of the backfield receiving wise, 23 receiving yards, 24 against the Texans, 20 against the Jags, and then back-to-back weeks, he had 36 each against the Colts and the Chicago Bears. And again, like I mentioned, he did have 23 in that game against the Green Bay Packers. And we take a look at what the Packers have given up in the backfield to the running back positions, specifically through the air, right? We talked a lot about Devon Achane this season, maybe in a class of his own when we talk about pass catching running backs, but they're allowing close to 42 receiving yards, per game, are the Green Bay Packers to the running back position. Devon Achane last week had, 56 receiving yards. Christian McCaffrey had 37 receiving yards. DeAndre Swift had 13 a few weeks ago. And then, like I mentioned, David Montgomery had 23 in that game they played in Green Bay a few weeks ago. And also, I want to say, Dearness Johnson for the Jacksonville Jaguars also had 20 receiving yards in that game. And it's been a theme for them all throughout the season. I think this is a game where Jared Goff maybe has some check downs, maybe some screen passes, David Montgomery that just keep him involved in that passing game. So I do like his receiving yard to go up and over the number of 14.5 here, Chris. So player prop number 2 for me, David Montgomery, over 14.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, I like this one, just because we got Jared Goff at the crib. We got him at the crib. He at the dome. He's going to utilize his running backs, both Sonic and Knuckles, out of that backfield. I think we'll see both of them potentially have some success here. I was actually looking at Jahmyr Gibbs receiving yards here, but didn't quite get to the window with it. But I do like the look for David Montgomery. I think really good spot at the crib, like I said. So I would be telling you on this one, and love that the number is moving in your direction as well.
All right, let's keep it rolling here. Let's get over to player prop number 3 here. Chris, what do you got?
I'm going to actually go a little different here this week, and different has been good recently. So I'm going to try to stay hot with the different looks here, So we're going Sam Laporta, and we're going under on his actual receptions here. The number comes in at 3.5, and I love that it's close to even. Minus 105 on ESPN Bet is the best number. So first thing I look at, and this is really just a trend that that's literally just been cashing. You got a wide receiver room for the Lions that is pretty healthy, and it's a ton of mouths to feed for Jared Goff. We know that, right? You got Jameson on one side, you got
St. Patrick on the other side.
Yeah, St. Patrick. You got Amara on the other side. It's just it's a lot for anybody to dominate the wide receiving room. And then you already mentioned you like the running back to get receiving yards as well. So both of the running backs can actually catch the ball out the backfield as well. This has actually resulted in Sam Laporta going under his receiving prop, his reception prop in 73% of the games so far this season. He stayed under 4 receptions. He's only gone up and over the number in 1 of his last 5 games, 2 of his last 10 games. So he's hitting 20% in over the last 5, over the last 10. He's 3 straight games where he's landed right on 3 receptions, but has not gone up and over the number. You have to go back about 4 weeks ago where he had 4 receptions once. He did have a 6 reception game against Tennessee in week 5, I think it was. But I'm looking at his target share, only 12%, only 12% target share. And this is what really sold me on it. He's averaging just 4 targets per game. So if one of those catches don't get caught, then we're playing the numbers here. And we got a nice play here, in my opinion, over his last 10 games, only averaging 4 targets. And I'm looking at Detroit specifically, last part of the cap. I'm looking at Detroit specifically. This is a well-balanced team. They have a 50% run pass ratio over their last 10 games. So I do expect them to be able to, try to put the ball, on the ground, and for them to be able to have some success running the football in this game as well. So I'll go Sam Laporta under his 3.5 receptions here,
Definitely been a down year for Sam Laporta after what we saw, what he was able to do last season.
We thought he would,
right?
We thought he was going to be great, right? Everybody did, and it's not, I don't think it's a knock to him, I think they just have a well-balanced machine, right? This is the highest scoring offense in the NFL. And, he's had to sacrifice. I think it was the best word I would use. So, yeah, definitely agree with you.
Yeah, and I think that, again, like you mentioned, right, that they want to create that well-balanced attack because you have Sonic and Knuckles in the backfield there for this Detroit Lions team. And a lot of it, I think their offense is predicated on those 2 guys as well. And, somebody had to, maybe take a backseat, at least for this season, for Sam Laporta. He also was dealing with injuries too, as well, right? He missed some time there with the injury, so maybe still getting the rust off of his shoulders there a little bit. So, I look at. I wouldn't be able to talk you off of this one. A lot of people thinking that this might be the breakout game for him, but I'm not quite sure that it could be here for Sam Laporta. So, I wouldn't be able to talk you off of this one. That's for sure. All right, Chris, for my third player prop. You know me. Anytime this guy's at home, I usually back his longest reception. Jameson Williams up and over 22.5 longest reception. I know he didn't get it done, unfortunately, on Thanksgiving Day against the Chicago Bears. But again, I still believe that he's a home run hitter for this team. And I think that it just takes one catch for this guy to get up and over this number. And I've talked about it, what he's been able to do at home this season outside of what didn't happen for him on Thanksgiving Day. So I'll quickly read off these numbers again. 52 yards against the Rams at home, 50 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 70 against the Seattle Seahawks, and 64 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Didn't play in that game this season against the Green Bay Packers. So again, having him out there, it just takes him to get in one catch. I mean, obviously, this is what I need for him to get up and over this number. So, whether it's off of the play action, whether it's him catching the ball midfield and just utilizing his speed that they're after getting the yards after the catch, I think that Jameson Williams gets back on track here for his longest reception to go up and over here. So 22.5 is the number for him. I'll go ahead and take the over on that for Jameson Williams, thinking that he just continues dominating at home and getting those big catches for this Detroit Lions offense here, Chris.
Yeah, I mean the handicap is there. If the longest reception is there too, you just need them to haul one in, and I do think that opportunity will present itself just because of I think the ability to be able to catch one of those long passes consistently, actually starts up front, right? Your offensive line has to be able to protect in order for your quarterback to be able to throw the ball that far to find you. And what do we know about Detroit's offensive line? It's amazing, right? So as long as they have their offensive line intact, I'm not going to fade Jameson in this at all. So I would agree with you on this one, especially in a bounce back after not being able to get up and over last week.
All right, so that's 3 player props each here from myself and Chris. Chris, let's get into some honorable mentions here, and then we'll get into touchdown scores, and then we'll wrap it up with best bets.
Yeah, I'll make this short. If it's really only one guy, well, I guess. I'll throw one guy. And we didn't talk about him, but Jahmyr Gibbs, 64.5 yards. This number is on the move. I think it opened 59.5 yesterday, so it's up about 6 yards already. Sure, I don't think it's going to close at 64.5 either. You look at Jahmyr Gibbs, 7 straight games, he's actually going up and over 64.5. 9 of his last 10. He's averaging 6.5 yards per pop. 14 carries per game, 42% workload back there in that backfield with I don't know if he's Sonic or Knuckles, but with David Montgomery. And I don't know, I did some deep diving. He's averaging 30 yards, pretty much 30 yards per game after contact. Detroit offensive line continued to dominate. Gibbs he takes the bulk of the carries between him and Montgomery, which is why I like your receiving prop on Montgomery. And he's in a great spot, I think, to kind of continue that this week. We mentioned the Packers defense, not super great. And I think the line being 64.5 is a tad bit disrespectful for what explosiveness Jahmyr Gibbs can have out the backfield. So I didn't play him over his receiving yards. Over his rushing yards at 64.5, but I did consider it. I also considered, and this is where I may go to, this is the second one I'll go to, is Jahmyr Gibbs' longest rush. 17.5 is the number. Little juice on it over on ESPN bet -120. But this is a prop that's consistently hit. I know you would know because it's something that you've been taking into consideration. But 9 of his 12 games so far, he's actually up and over. 3 of his last 4, he's up and over. Didn't go over last week. So I think he has an explosive run. We just need 18 yards. Second game of the season, he landed on the hook at 17 against the Indianapolis Colts. But he hit 7 of his next 8 in this spot. So we know how dynamic he is coming into the league last season. We kind of all foresaw this when we talked about breaking down this division last year, this NFC North division last year. So I like Jahmyr Gibbs. If I like him, I'm not sure if I'll get there with either. But considering his longest rush up and over 17.5, and then just his rushing yards in general up and over 64.5 here.
Yeah, we've talked about Jahmyr Gibbs a lot, and it's just the fact that he just has this second gear, third gear that he just turns up when he's able to turn those corners for this Detroit Lions rushing attack there. So, I mean, the numbers, it's high for a reason. I know, like you mentioned, last week was an one-off for some of these longest plays, I should say, for these Detroit Lions players. But again, Jahmyr Gibbs is a guy that has that ability. I also like it for Josh Jacobs as well, up and over his longest rush attempt 14.5. I know he has that ability as well. A little bit of a different runner than what Jahmyr Gibbs is. I think more so like a David Montgomery is Josh Jacobs. But yeah, I think those big plays, so those explosive plays, is what we've seen from this Detroit Lions team ever since they've had Ben Johnson as the offensive coordinator and Dan Campbell there as well. So we'll not be able to talk you off of that one for sure. I really didn't have much for our honorable mentions, Chris. I mean, the ones that I gave out was the ones that I really did love, especially when we have these isolated games. It's just, or one games I just, trying to find three is always a tough task, but then honorable mentions is also a different conversation there as well. So I'll leave it at that. All right, before we do get up to touchdown scores for this week here, Chris, let me quickly tell everyone about our good old friends over at mybookie.ag. We're brought to you by mybookie.ag. MyBookie has been running on SGPN for years. Check out their new and improved website, great on mobile, plus props for every game and the live dealer casino. They even have a new early cash out option. Head over to mybookie.ag. Make sure you use that promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit match up to $1,000 plus a $10 casino chip. That's mybookie.ag. Make sure you use that promo code SGPN. And we're also brought to you by Rhythm. SGPN's Power Runner Rhythm is the #1 AI-powered back sports betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive models in seconds and get predictions for betting on money lines, spreads, totals, and props. Build your own model, copy one of the top-performing models from the leaderboard, or have Rhythm build a model for you. Now you can track props in the Rhythm app. NFL picks, NFL props, college football, college basketball, NBA. Rhythm has it all. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. All right, Chris, let's get into touchdown scores for this week. We have been absolutely crushing this market for the Thursday night football games. But where are you taking us for your guys to find the end zone this week?
Man, it's all chalky, It's a pretty, I mean, these guys that score touchdowns in these two games are typically the guys that's always scoring touchdowns, right? So I like David Montgomery, but the odds are not going to be good enough for me to play him. I see -150 as the best number available right now over on FanDuel. But he's been a touchdown machine with 11 rushing touchdowns this season. Packers have allowed running backs to score at least once in 3 of their last 4 games. Pretty favorable matchup for him. Jahmyr Gibbs, also a guy, I don't think I'm laying this with him either. It's on Hard Rock at -145. Another really great option, of course, for the Detroit Lions. Dual threat back, 11 total touchdowns this season. We just talked about the Packers defense not being that great, allowing 4.7 yards per carry. I think he has some success in this game. The guy I will bet, I think I like the wide receivers a little bit more. Well, I guess because Josh Jacobs is also -145, and I think he has some success, especially with those 3 defensive linemen, even if they do play, being limited in this spot. But he's also -145. So all of the running backs are -145 or worse. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I continuously talk about him. He continuously scores a touchdown. +125 right now. He's plus money on a couple different sports books. +125 on Hard Rock. Closer to +110, +105 on a lot of other books. But it's just the target share. It's him and Jared Goff are like peanut butter and jelly. This is like modern day Shaq and Kobe right now. These guys are in such a great rhythm and sync right now. And, we've seen the Packers secondary struggle against elite wide receivers. I think he can create some separation. So I like him at plus money. And then I'll go, so him officially. The other guy I'll go is Christian Watson. I think Christian Watson on the opposite side can get in the end zone. And I like the odds a little bit better. +210 over on DraftKings is the best number for Christian Watson. You got a big play threat for the Packers with speed, size, a dangerous target in the red zone and on deep passes. You got a Lions defense that, if they give it up at all, it's typically in the pass. So it aligns well with Watson's skill set here. And in a game where it does kind of feel like the Packers are going to have to pass to keep the game close. I like Watson in this spot, So I'll leave you with those two. Just Christian Watson +210 and Amon-Ra St. Brown, just because he's still at plus money as well. What about yourself?
So yeah, you mentioned Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, I think I don't want to say it's automatic, but there was a stretch where he had 8 straight games of touchdowns for the Detroit Lions. I'm trying to see how he's done against the Packers in specific. But if you're able to find him at plus money, I definitely would get down on Amon-Ra St. Brown for the Detroit Lions. I'll stick to my guy, Jaden Reed. He believe he had 2 touchdowns last week for the Green Bay Packers offense. I think that can continue if I'm expecting him to have a big week. Maybe he breaks one out against this Detroit Lions offense. You mentioned the running backs are all chalky this week. Josh Jacobs, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. I mean, those are almost auto plays for people. So sometimes they just put them into their same game parlays. Tucker Kraft, I think, is a sneaky one here, tight end for the Green Bay Packers, plus 220. Definitely shop around, like we say, always get the best number. But I do think that, he's been involved in the red zone for the Green Bay Packers, a big target there for Jordan Love. I think that's an opportunity for him to find the end zone. And then I'll say Jordan Love as well. He has the ability to scramble, especially we talked about the injuries at the defensive line there, Chris, that, if they are giving up a lot of yards on the ground, that maybe he can get one into the end zone utilizing his leg when they do get into that red zone there. So Jordan Love to scramble for one at plus 380. Emmanuel Wilson, I'll throw that one out there as well, the backup running back there for the Green Bay Packers. We've seen a lot of times when we get down to these red zones that they bring in like the bigger backs. Emmanuel Wilson has that ability to break out a big run and really mow down the defenders in front of him. I think this is a good opportunity. Those are good odds there for him to find the end zone plus 650. So I'll give you a couple of long shots there for the Green Bay Packers side of things. All right. So those are our touchdown scores. Let's get into best bets here, Chris, for the Thursday night football game. And then we'll put together an Underdog Fantasy entry here. Who do you like as your best bet?
Man, it's tough. I kind of want to go Jared Goff over his passing touchdowns and Sam Laporta, but we won't go double. We'll make one, and we'll go Sam Laporta. Been switching up with switching this up, but I think historically throughout the year, I played a lot of unders. For best bets, and the unders have been profitable. So we'll continue to go with the under streak. Sam Laporta under his 3.5 receptions. Like I mentioned, he's only up and over one of his last 5 games, 2 of his last 10. So 20% hit rate to both of those. And the target share, I mentioned 12%, only getting about 4 targets per game. I think Green Bay tries to keep this offense off the field, and that'll also limit Sam Laporta being able to go up and over his 4 receptions. Remember, Jared Goff got a lot of mouths to feed over there. So we'll go Sam Laporta under his 3.5 receptions. I love it that I'm only getting just 5 cents of juice on it as well. Best bet, Sam Laporta under.
All right, for my best bet, I will go. I like David Montgomery this week, man. I think he's really been involved in that passing game for the Detroit Lions. Like I mentioned, 5 straight weeks, he's gone up and over the number of 14.5 receiving yards. And I think that, we didn't really even talk about the Jahmyr Gibbs Instagram social media whiteboard situation there. I don't think it's really a big deal about it, but will there be more snaps for David Montgomery because of that? I wouldn't think so, but look, we talked about it, right? The offense is really predicated on these 2 guys, and they build off of their offense or play action passes and things like that off of those 2 guys. But David Montgomery, whether it's screen passes, whether it's check downs, I know he has the ability to rack up the yards, and I don't see a guy that could get this done in 1 catch, but he's been targeted of an average of 3 times over the last 5 games. He's made the most of it. I think he only has 1 drop in that span. So more, he has trustworthy hands here for sure for this Detroit Lions team. So I'll take the receiving yards up and over 14.5 for David Montgomery. All right, Chris, let's put together our Underdog Fantasy entry here for this week's Thursday night football game. Again, make sure you guys use that promo code machine over at Underdog Fantasy. If you haven't already signed up with Underdog, they'll give you a 50% deposit bonus of up to $1,000. And they also have profit boosts that are going on as well over on Underdog Fantasy. So, you can boost your entry odds up as well. All right, so what I'll do is I'll go ahead and put our best bets into this entry here for Thursday night football. We'll go David Montgomery up and higher on his 14.5 receiving yards. Chris, you like Sam Laporta on his receptions to go
under 3.5.
Yeah, let's go lower on that. I think we both like Josh Jacobs this week, so I'll throw that one in there.
Like it.
You
Love it. Love it.
You want to go attempts or you want to go rushing yards?
Honestly, like you said, I think that they're correlated. So if he gets the attempts, I think he can get the yards. We can go yards.
All right, we'll go yards. We'll go higher. It is at 69.5, but I do think that he can get into 75 plus in this game, for sure. Especially without, like we mentioned, all the injuries that they are dealing with on the defensive line there for the Detroit Lions. All right, so our entry this week: David Montgomery, higher 14.5 receiving yards. Sam Laporta, lower 3.5 receptions. And Josh Jacobs, higher 69.5 rushing yards. That'll be a 6x entry. So every $10 that you do put in, you'll get a $60 return courtesy of UnderdogFantasy.com. And make sure you guys use that promo code MACHINE. Get over there, sign up yourself an account, get that bonus cash courtesy of Underdog Fantasy. And if you already have an account, maybe grab your wife's phone, grab anyone of the legal age and make them an account and use that promo code MACHINE. Definitely would help us out here at the network and grow the show here on the Propcast. All right, that's going to do it here for this edition of the NFL Propcast. Detroit Lions hosting the Green Bay Packers. Should be a good one on Thursday night, so definitely looking forward to it. Chris, anything else you want to mention, my man, before we get out of here?
Nah, that'll be it, man. Enjoy the games. Best of luck to you guys. Bet responsibly, and we will catch you guys on Friday for
we'll be
Week
back.
14 Sunday props.
100%. We'll be back on Friday for the Sunday games. Look out for us then. Pretty good schedule this week as well. I know we have about 6 teams that are on bye, but still should be a great week of NFL football. All right, we'll be back, like I mentioned, on Friday. Till then, good luck with your bets. Let's break these books off, and always remember to let it ride.